Hi, everyone. Welcome to Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon News Podcast, your commercial-free bourbon news podcast for Monday, May 26th. I am Ed from bourbonobsessed.com, also known on Instagram as bourbon_obsessed. I publish bi-weekly newsletters featuring the latest bourbon news and releases, and also do this podcast version for your listening pleasure. I'm here again with my friend and bourbon aficionado, Dean Langdon. Dean, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, Ed. Good afternoon to you and to all of our listeners, or morning, whenever they happen to listen to this wonderful commercial-free podcast. And that's a distinction that we'd be willing to lose, I suspect, if somebody just asked us nicely.
We would definitely be willing to have a look, be the bourbon news podcast that has plenty of money to spend on equipment and everything else, but
Right.
at the moment we are not. What have you done interesting in bourbon this week?
In bourbon this week, it's mostly just been, seeing if there's anything at my local liquor store, at my local Costco. No real events this week. This week was a work week, I'm afraid. We had things to do for work, and still that takes precedence. Maybe next year it won't, but right now it does. What
Yeah,
about you? It's getting close to National Bourbon Week, but what kind of things were you up to?
it's not a super busy week for a change. Well, we went up to J. Mattingly up in Frankfurt, and that was actually a really good experience. We did the whole bourbon. Well, you could choose what kind of whiskey you blend, but either a bourbon, a rye, or a light whiskey. And you make your own blend, and then you select your bottle and you select your name, and then they make it look all pretty for you. And
Right, right.
it was a really good experience. And we're gonna have a podcast coming up. We chatted with the president of J. Mattingly, and we'll be airing that pretty soon. So that was great. And then really didn't do any other actual bourbon events.
Going back to Mattingly real quick, I like the things that they sell at retail. I think they do a great job of blending. They do a good job of selecting barrels, and it's always fun to go make your own bottle, right? Blend from a couple different choices, make your own bottle. They say they make it look pretty. They do a good job of that also. I like their labeling.
Yeah, they're doing a very good job, and it's a really cool place to visit. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll obviously we'll be talking about it more when we air the podcast, and I'll be posting a lot more, and there'll be a write-up of the blending experience on the website as well, and a bunch of pictures, so people can get a much better feel for it. But suffice it to say, we really enjoyed going up there, really enjoyed the whiskey, really enjoyed everybody that
Mhm.
was there, that very great hospitality, and yeah, I would definitely go again, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. Yep. Speaking of places you visited, I see one of the first places we're going to talk about is Belle Meade and its connection with Greenbrier Distillery. And I actually looked at your reviews or your visits to that distillery down in Nashville, and it's interesting how it's changed. You went, I think, in 2019 and again in 2024. So don't want to steal the thunder of the news, but is that where we're going to start today? Is it Belle Meade?
That is where we're going to start. So we'll just jump right in. Thanks for that segue. So Andy and Charlie Nelson, who are the people that started Belle Meade Bourbon and Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, have reacquired the rights to their original brand, Belle Meade Bourbon, marking its return to the Nelson family. After selling majority control to Constellation Brands in 2019 and later departing the company, the brothers quietly regained ownership at the end of 2024 and announced the news in April 2025. They are now focused on rebuilding Belle Meade as a Nashville-centric brand with availability only in Nashville and Middle Tennessee. They plan to source top-quality barrels, which currently come from MGP and Bardstown Bourbon Company. Additional spirits in their portfolio include Louise's Liquor and Shotsky Vodka. Their long-term plans include building a distillery. Interestingly, this news comes as Constellation has essentially stopped production at Nelson Greenbrier Distillery and laid off the bulk of their production staff. So, interesting news.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that the brothers bought back the name, right? And the name was associated, they were NDPs. They were using MGP juice or Bardstown Bourbon Company juice, and they're just going to go back to that and try and make it more local. So I think that's interesting to try and make a local NDP as opposed to a distillery, because they said a distillery is in the long-term plans. So yeah, it'll be interesting how it plays out, because again, can you achieve success that way? We've got a little bit of a declining market. Is that a path that may work? It's just to keep it local.
Well, it's interesting for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, we'd say that people starting a source brand at this particular point in time that was unknown would not be the best move, except this brand is known. So
Hmm.
they already have all the brand recognition. And if you already are an existing brand, it's actually a good time to be a brand that sources because the whiskey prices are so low and your operating expenses are much lower from that standpoint. So you're much better positioned to compete in the market, which was not the case when you had to spend twice as much or more for barrels. So it's a good time to be in that side of the business if you're already an existing business, I think. And then, I mean, I suppose it's not a coincidence that at Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, Constellation stopped making whiskey, knowing that these guys are going to
Hmm.
be making whiskey again under the Belle Meade Bourbon label. So I guess the question is, what happens to the Nelson Brothers label? Because there's not
Well,
going to be production staff left at the distillery.
right, right, and they were, to be clear, they're two separate labels, and I think the Belle Meade label has a better reputation, a better is held in higher esteem, if you would. And again, we the bourbon geeks know that, well, it's MGP juice, but they selected some excellent barrels, and they did their magic with it in a good way. I know I've got a couple single barrels of Belle Meade that I've always been impressed with them. I think it's interesting they said they would consider sourcing from other sources besides MGP or Bardstown bourbon. To me, that ties in with your comment that, hey, it's a NDP market. There's overproduction. Maybe you go look to some of the big distillers who are overproducing also,
Mm-hmm.
and get some more, classic, be it Barton or Wild Turkey juice or whatever, and work with that, work it into the Belle Meade brand. So I think there's a lot of possibility there.
Yeah, I mean, and have you been down to the Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery in Nashville?
I have not, no. And it sounds like they're going to keep the visitor side of it open, so I still could, but I'm not going to get to tour the distillery, right?
No, but well, I don't know because I mean, I guess that depends what they do with the Nelson's Greenbrier brand. I suppose I don't know how licensing works there, but I assume if it's similar to Kentucky and you want to be able to sell direct to consumer and on-site sales, and you're going to have a distillery that functions to some degree. So
Hmm.
I don't know unless they want to become entirely an entertainment venue. I mean, the interesting thing is, they underwent a huge expansion of their retail, entertainment, restaurant space. So I mean, you wonder how long, if this was the plan all along, that Constellation wanted to turn it more into an entertainment venue. That seems a little unusual because they do actually own spirit companies. But it's just a very interesting turn of events that the
Yeah, no, it really is. And I mean, I do think there's potentially more margin in the tourism front end side of things, but I think it's hard to do that without your own product. You have to make your own product. And so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it
yeah.
could be, distilleries go through downtimes, right? I mean, and sometimes you can go quiet for a month, you can service equipment, you can do things like that. I don't think that's what's going on here, but I think if they wanted to, they could resume operations without hopefully without a whole lot of trouble. But who knows if that's what they want to do?
Yeah, I guess we will see.
Yep,
Uh,
yep. Nick says yes, they will.
yes. All right, we'll move on to our next story, which is a little along the same lines but different. Middle West Spirits has officially announced the acquisition of Old Elk Distillery, adding the Colorado-based brand to its expanding portfolio. The reasons for the acquisition are summed up nicely by Ryan Lang, founding lead distiller and CEO of Middle West Spirits. Old Elk has built a respected and beloved brand with staying power thanks to a distinct blending and innovation philosophy that complements our grain to glass production model. Their agility in developing award winning blends pairs naturally with our technical approach and scale. Together, we're not just expanding, we're joining forces to preserve what makes each brand special while unlocking new potential. We're laying the foundation for long term growth with a shared focus on quality, transparency, and customer relationship. And that's according to what Ryan Lang said. By combining Old Elk's momentum with Middle West's robust infrastructure, this acquisition empowers both companies to reach more consumers, drive innovation, and raise the bar for craft spirits at scale. So I think this came as a surprise to, well, me, and I think most people.
Yeah, It certainly did to me. I forget where I first saw it. So, way I would, I wouldn't have expected Old Elk to be acquired by anybody. I could see them doing what I call the Penelope route, where EP might acquire them because they use MG juice. But this looks like they're not going to be used. I mean, we don't know, but because they're being merged or acquired by Middle West, which just increased its capacity, you would expect that Middle West would want to be using some of that capacity to generate product for Old Elk to use. To me, is the business question here is, can you buy your way out of building overproduction by acquiring a non-distilling producer and using that non-distilling producer to eat up your production that you overbuilt? Well,
Yeah,
maybe this will tell us.
I don't know. I mean, it's another interesting thing. I think Middle West does quite a bit of. I'm actually not super familiar with them, but I thought they do quite a bit of contract distilling, don't they?
I
So
think they do. I mean, they've got their own brands, but I don't. They're starting to generate a little bit of reputation from what I can see. I've only sampled one of theirs. They do a dark rye. Interesting. But yeah, I
yeah, the
think they do have
pumpernickel
just
rye.
expanded capacity. So
Yeah, I mean, so this may in part be their answer to that because we know that when we've talked about other companies like MGP itself, how that contract distilling market has decreased significantly. So they're filling in what could be lost. I mean, we have no idea of the, but assuming they
we
lost
don't.
some of the
No, we don't.
contract distilling
But
volume, this is taking its place, I guess. But I mean, it just raises so many questions. The whole Old Elk flavor profile will completely change if it goes from MGP bourbon that's at least aged for some time. I don't know exactly how long it sits in Colorado, but it's got to be there for at least a little while, and
right.
gets blended to something that's distilled and blended at Middle West. So it just seems like a
You probably know. I mean, I think didn't Greg Metzi have MGP distill for him? I think he may have started by buying existing MGP bottles, but for some reason I want to say that he provided them with mash bills he wanted them to make, and they did that for him. I don't know if that's right or not.
No, that is right. It's more contract distilled. That's not sourced. I mean, Old Elk has
Yeah.
always had fairly distinctive mash bills. So, and I don't know when it all overlapped, and I can't remember the exact timing of him
Right.
leaving there and Old Elk starting, but yes. So he had a lot to do with those mash bills, and they are unique to them as far as I know. So,
Yeah. So conceivably, I mean, Middle West could still the same mash bill, conceivably. But you know what? The other thing, the question this raised for me is, it doesn't say what's going to happen to Greg. I assume he's going to stay at Old Elk and continue to do his magic. But I would have felt more comfortable if they would have said that, and they didn't say that.
no, but somebody did say that he still lives in like the Cincinnati area or something. So this is like much more convenient.
Hmm.
No, I don't remember where I heard that, so I don't know if it's true. But I
Yeah.
did hear something like that, which greatly surprised me. So I don't know. I don't know enough
Yeah.
about that. But if that is true that he's in the Cincinnati area, he's gonna be this will be convenient, and I
Very much
assume
so. Yeah. Because Middle West is in Columbus, right down the road. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what pans out as. I think it's a mashup, if you will. I think it may work well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to be a few years before we'll notice any potential change in flavor profile, also. And I
Right,
guess they could do it so nobody, so it's sort of seamless. I guess they could start with half and half, as the middle, whatever they distill it,
right,
Middle
right.
West gets older, and start mixing it in with the existing MGP, and then gradually fade it out. I mean, who knows? I mean,
Yeah, who knows? I mean, well, Old Elk does their. I think they've got a specific name, slow cut. They slow proof their bourbons. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure Middle West doesn't do. There's all sorts of concepts and ideas that can be traded back and forth here, and it could make for some interesting experimentation. I hope they do some experimental things with the knowledge base and the production.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Old Elk fan, so I would like it to continue. And then as far as Greg Metzu, though, I mean, maybe he wants to retire. I mean, isn't he's already been in the industry for quite some time. I don't know exactly how old he is. So
We all
who knows?
aspire to that.
No,
He's
nobody's
earned
talked
it if
about.
that's what he wants.
Yes, nobody has officially talked about any of the things that we're saying, so it's all just conjecture. But we'll see what
We're
happens.
we're commercial free and non-authoritative, folks. Just remember this.
And not particularly well informed. But All right, the next story is a little more straightforward, so there's not too much to expand on here. So Knob Creek expands their single barrel select program with the launch of Knob Creek Single Barrel Select Cask Strength, offering uncut, unfiltered expressions of both bourbon and rye. Bottled directly from the barrel with no water added, Knob Creek Single Barrel Select Cask Strength delivers signature bold flavor fans have come to love in its purest form. Ranging in proof from approximately 110 to 130 for bourbon and 100 to 120 for rye, each barrel delivers a distinct and full flavored experience. The suggested retail price will be $69.99 for a 750 milliliter bottle. We don't know the age, so I guess we'll assume it's still going to be in the same Knob Creek current single barrel select range, which is 10-ish nowadays, I guess.
Yeah, and you're right. They don't say anything about an age, but that would be my guess. I remember the first barrel pick I did with you was a Knob Creek, and they were all 14 to 15 years old, and I think they came out to be $55 a bottle, but they were all proof to 120. Well, maybe these weren't now that I have to go
No,
back and look, but I think they were. That has been the practice all along, right? Is they proof everything to 120, even the single barrels. Now you're going to be able to get the cask proof. I like it from a marketing standpoint. You've already got the brand, you've already got the distillate. Here's just another product out of that same barrel. You're charging $10 a bottle more, and you're going to get a little bit more. There are people who are going to clamor because Knob Creek's a great bourbon, but you could only get it at 120 proof for the bourbon or 115 for the rye in the single barrels. Now you're going to get actual.
well, except for the interesting part that, I mean, 120 wasn't exactly a low proof. So,
No,
and apparently now your barrel proof bourbon could be 110. So it's going to be lower than the proof that people wanted higher. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I wonder if
yeah.
people will wind up picking these barrels based on the proof instead of the what they actually really like. I mean, as we all know, I mean, you do much better. You should always pick a barrel not knowing anything about it.
Hmm.
You don't want to know anything about it. You just get biased. So it's much better to be surprised, and then when you find out you picked the 110 instead of the 130, that's just how it is. You liked it better. So
Well, that's right. Yeah. I mean, people that think they should, select for the highest proof, it's really easy on a blind tasting if you don't know anything about it to prove that wrong. There's so much good stuff in the 108, 110, 115 proof range. Sometimes the proof overwhelms the flavor.
yeah, I mean, it's going to depend a lot on the barrel. I mean, same with the age. And, the barrels that are picked for this are picked by professionals who are the ones who pick the single barrels for you to choose from. So they're going to pick things that are going to do well at whatever proof they're at. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we're all excited, but I can already see now my first barrel proof Knob Creek is going to be 110.
Right? Right? Yeah. Well,
But
you can't get one at 110 right now, so there's that uniqueness aspect to it.
that is true. So yeah, well, something new and exciting to look forward to. All right, our next story is the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, DISCUS, has been awarded. This number is very interesting to me. $1,032,601. I'm sure there's a reason behind that exact number. By the USDA's Market Access Program to fund its 2025 Export Promotion Plan, helping U.S. distillers, especially those producing American whiskeys, grow their international presence. Highlights include trade events in the UK, Japan, Germany, France, and India, as well as annual promotional campaigns in India, Australia, and the UK. Discus also receives $1.25 million in regional agricultural promotion program funding from the USDA to be used over 5 years to host programs in South America, India, and Singapore. So total of almost 2.3-ish million.
Right, but that bigger one, the 1.25, is stretched out over 5 years. So that's sort of a dribble, but it's a nice way to support agriculture. It's interesting. This is the USDA, right? About farmers, and maybe I draw a link between farmers and bourbon, but not everybody might do that. And here's at least proof that our government thinks there's a connection there. Here's a agricultural product at the end of the day, and let's get it into those international markets. I think this is geared towards craft. I don't think this intended to help Jim Beams and the Heaven Hills of the world. They've got pretty robust marketing. I think this is more for the craft.
Did it say that?
I think I saw that someplace in the
Uh,
actual press release. Yes.
I mean, I guess
Now it
that
didn't
would.
it didn't say that it wasn't for the big guys. I mean, they may get, they may be benefit for us too. I don't, it wasn't that specific, but it did say it was to help craft distillers expand into international.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it comes at an interesting time for this, given the various economic things that are happening that are being impediments to expanding into international markets. But yeah, I mean, certainly
and
helpful at
and
this.
there's I mean there's been some uncertainty with grants lately too. So let's hope this is a solid grant, that it gets paid out in time, and that it helps sell some of Kentucky's best spirits. Although I think it is national, and I think it's for it's not focused on bourbon, it's just whiskey correctly. I saw that in there too. So it could help, whiskey. It could be American single malt, some of
Yeah.
these markets, and
No.
that's fine. Let's get American whiskey out there to the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it's for anybody, U.S. distillers, but especially those producing American whiskey. Yeah, no, certainly good to spread the word. All right, the next story is also about spreading the word, but different word. The Maryland Distillers Guild has launched its new Rye Curious campaign to celebrate and bring awareness of the state's rye whiskey heritage. According to their website, here at Rye Curious, we'll dive into the history, celebrate local makers, and share why this underappreciated spirit deserves its moment in the spotlight. Stay tuned and join the conversation. To kick off the effort, Baltimore Spirits Company, McClintock Distilling, and Sagamore Spirits have collaborated on a special limited release Rye Curious blended rye whiskey, which was released on Sunday, May 18th at noon at both Baltimore Spirits Co. in Baltimore and McClintock Distilling in Frederick. Each location began with 150 bottles available for $79.99. Future releases will include rye whiskey from additional Maryland distillers. And I wonder if any of those bottles are left. When was the 18th? That was like almost a week
Well,
ago. A week ago.
almost a week ago. So I'm going to bet no on that. And
Mhm.
it's like I love rye. I'm glad to see Maryland engage in a marketing campaign for their rye. But if you're only going to, I think this they had 450 bottles total. The marketing is going to reach such a bigger audience than the bourbon can reach. I wonder about the wisdom behind that. And I know they'll have other releases. Maybe you could have a little bit broader release to get to a broader audience the first thing out of the gate.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
just me. I'm not a marketer.
yeah, I guess it just right. I guess it depends how many of these different kinds of outreach things if they're going to do to reach other people because yeah, I think there's only 300 bottles because they're only being sold at two of those three distilleries.
Mm.
I don't know why they're not being sold at Sagamore Spirit, but it looks like they're only being sold at Baltimore Spirits and McClintock according to this, and each had 150 bottles. So that's 300. So we know that's already going to people that love rye. So you're not
Right.
really exposing anybody new to it that way. Although the bottle's cool, and I would certainly have tried to get one if I was there. But yeah, so I mean, we'll see what they wind up doing, and
Yeah, I
right,
mean, I took a look at the web page. It's a nice, robust web page, and if they can drive traffic to that web page, it just should help grow the Maryland Rye segment. Hope it works.
right. But it really needs to target people that are not rye drinkers.
Right, and it's hard to do that with 300 bottles, right?
Yeah. So well, anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So we'll keep an eye.
Yep, yep.
All right, our next story. Reuters has reported that Diageo, and actually other people reported this too, maker of Johnny Walker and Guinness, plans to cut $500 million in costs and dispose of significant assets by 2028 as it works to boost performance and reduce debt. The company aims to bring its net debt to operating profit ratio down from 3.1 to between 2.5 and 3.0 through reductions in trade investment, advertising, supply chain costs, and overhead without large-scale layoffs. However, some significant assets will be disposed of. CEO Deborah Crew confirmed Guinness will remain a core asset, while Diageo also revised down the expected financial hit from U.S. tariffs. Nonetheless, a $150 million annual hit from lingering tariffs remains projected. And this was written before that recent 50% tariff discussion that happened like 2 days ago.
Mm.
Diageo hopes to generate $3 billion in free cash flow annually beginning in fiscal 2026. So this is becoming a common trend here that every week somebody's downsizing or doing something in restructuring, boosting performance and in the name of efficiency and everything. So, what exactly does that profit ratio mean?
I'm sure I won't be able to. I mean, it's debt to profit, so debt to operating profit, and so basically that's how much you're leveraged. So I'm an English major, not an accountant, but as I understand it, if
No,
you
but
have
you
a
deal with
three
bankruptcy. This seems like the kind of thing that would be pretty relevant.
if you have a 3.0 debt to operating profit ratio, that tells me you've got three times as much debt as your operating profit, but that profit is able to service that debt, right? That's not an outrageous number. It depends on the industry. Some industries have a really high debt to profit ratio. Others, more industrial or agricultural, sometimes just lower debt to profit ratios. Reducing it from 3.1 to 2.5 is not a huge reduction, but with interest rates and everything, that helps. Okay, every dollar a company pays in interest is not profit, and so unless they're leveraging that money to make more money, that's why they're trying to reduce that. I saw one quote there that what they're looking at, and the asset disposal in quotes is interesting. There was somebody, and I don't remember who it was, said that they're looking above and beyond smaller brand disposal. So that makes me wonder, well, are there some middle brands in that they'll be looking to offload? I think they just have one American bourbon that I saw on their website, which was Bullet. And since we're not speaking with authority, we can speculate that maybe Bullet will come up for sale before 2028. Maybe they'd like to offload that.
Well, but they own Dickel, George Dickel, and don't they also own Balcones? That one I may be wrong about.
Yeah, all I could see on the website was Bullet, but it said they've got over 200 brands, and I don't think I got a complete. So there are bound to be others that they could part with.
Well, they
You know,
definitely own George Dickel. That one I'm positive.
and I'm sure they'll go about it thoughtfully. They'll think about where are there markets that we've just got a stray asset, maybe the expenses of servicing that asset, the benefits. It's going to be very business-like. Diageo is a huge multinational company. They're not into craft distilling.
No, yeah, it was November 2022 when Diageo acquired Balcones. So they own at least three brands that are
Yeah, okay.
fairly sizable, and I cannot remember off the top of my head others, but anyway, suffice it to say, we'll move on to our next story. So Jack Daniels is launching a new global ad campaign starting in May, designed to reinforce why Jack Daniels remains a household name. Jack Daniels stands apart due to its enduring commitment to traditional methods and genuine character, a legacy that goes back to the processes pioneered by Jack Daniel himself. The new creative highlights a distinctive charcoal mellowing process which sets Jack Daniels apart from all other whiskeys and ensures a flavor that is both authentic and timeless. Created in partnership with Energy BBDO, That's What Makes Jack Jack, is a bold, rootsy return to what made Jack Daniels an icon. Once the whiskey of choice for cultural icons like Sinatra and the Rolling Stones, Jack is reinforcing its status as a badge of independent spirit for a new generation. And I watched the video. Did you watch the video? The video is...
I did watch the video. I agree with the rootsy descriptor.
Yeah.
As you would expect, right? It's done by a huge ad agency. It's a huge brand. It's very well done. And Nick liked it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that you know, it's interesting that Jack Daniels feels the need to appeal to the new generation. I think probably every whiskey producer feels that. But boy, Jack Daniels has such a market share worldwide that just that, I mean, they're such a well-established brand. Do they really need, if they feel the need to market to the new generation, which is their term, that just tells us that the younger, whatever the next generation is, isn't drinking bourbon. We're the bourbon drinkers.
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody's concerned about this younger generation, but I don't know. I thought everything goes through phases, and most things are predicting that when they're in their 30s and 40s, they're going to be drinking just as much as everybody else did. I mean, I guess Jack Daniels is a little different than a lot of the other brands because younger drinkers did start drinking that, but many of the other bourbons, and certainly the higher priced ones, I mean, that's not something that a lot of younger people were drinking anyway. But
Right.
Jack Daniels, they definitely were. But yeah, I mean, everybody's targeting that market, and I
But
thought the
we've got to
global...
make it look, yeah. I mean, if you don't make it look cool, you're not going to get them. And so let's make it look genuine and it was a well done video. It they did go back to the roots bourbon making process, and and then tie that into entertainment scenes and dancing, good vibes from there.
Well, it's a global campaign, so I guess I mean that video is meant to appeal to everybody worldwide.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Our next story is about Lexington Habitat for Humanity has launched its 2025 Pappy with a Purpose raffle, a fundraising initiative aimed at supporting the organization's mission to provide affordable housing as well as provide assistance with upgrades and repairs in the Lexington area. The raffle features a grand prize package containing all 6 expressions of the coveted Pappy Van Winkle lineup, including the 23, 20, and 15-year-olds, the Van Winkle family rye, the 12-year, also known as Lot B, and the Old Rip Van Winkle, which is the 10-year. Additional runner-up prizes include rare bottles such as Weller Foolproof, Stag, Blanton's, True Story, Woodford Batch Proof, and UK Wild Cask Bourbon with the Beam Institute Distillery Tour, which the Beam Institute is in the Department of Agriculture, by the way, so that goes right along with what we were talking about earlier.
Right. Right.
With distilling, as well as a rare bourbon tasting from Justin's House of Bourbon. The drawing will be held on June 11 at 1 p.m. Eastern Time via Facebook Live, and the net proceeds benefit Lexington Habitat for Humanity. And if people want to buy tickets, you could just Google them and the links on their website.
And you did such a great job of describing that in the newsletter, Ed, that I immediately went and bought a ticket. But I mean, I like Lexington Habitat for Humanity does a great job getting people into homes. They will take fixtures and things from people that are remodeling, incorporate those into new homes. So they're in my mind, they're doing it right. And as of Friday, they had sold 214 tickets. So right now, your odds are pretty good. Get in there and support a good charity and buy your ticket.
Well, the good thing about this one is too, I mean, it is a very good cause, which is why I've included it in our newsletter. But it's also, I like when the raffles are set up this way. I mean, obviously the grand prize is the big thing, but they have all those separate other prizes. So, it still can be sort of fun if you don't win the big one. At least you get other prizes that are good. I mean, too many of these raffles are just the one prize and one person takes all and everybody else gets nothing. So I think it's nice it has these little consolation prizes. And
I agree, and I'm much more likely to buy a ticket if I think I've got a chance at 4 prizes instead of just one.
But I mean, just since we're talking about, we're not really, but to talk about these raffles and the bourbon raffles and lotteries and stuff in general, I mean, there are a lot of them these days. And I think, I don't know about you, but when they first started, which was, I don't know when they really started picking up during COVID sometime maybe, but they were a novelty and or maybe it was before COVID. I don't know, but they were more
This
of
really
a
took off with COVID. Yeah.
yeah. I mean they were much more of a novelty, and I think everybody jumped at buying the tickets, and they'd all sell them out. But now there's just so many of them that I think it comes down to, is it a charity you would be supporting anyway? Like you don't just buy it because of the raffle part, because there's many to choose from. You just sort of buy it because it's a cause you think is doing a good thing.
I know that's certainly true for me. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't buy lottery tickets. I don't, I'll place bets at Keeneland, but I mean, anything like that is meant to generate money for whoever's running it, and that's great if it's a charity. That's the point. If I'm willing to support a charity, would I give $100 to Lexington Habitat for Humanity? Sure, I'd give them that without getting into a bourbon raffle. So why wouldn't I take a chance at a couple of prizes for my $100? There's some others that, I mean, there's a group out of, I think, Elizabethtown, Give 270, I'll call, that runs these almost regionally, if not nationally. And, you can find a wide variety of causes. Some of those causes I don't care about. I'm not going to buy a raffle ticket, just it's bourbon I can't find.
Yeah. And so anyway, we hope they do well and sell a lot of tickets and raise a lot of money, because they definitely do good work.
Good luck to everybody who buys a ticket.
Yeah. Not just Dean.
Yeah, I'm nobody. So. I'm a lowly podcaster.
So our next story is another acquisition. So the spirits business reports that Loch Lomond Group, and I think other people have reported this too now, has acquired New York Distilling Co. NYDC, marking LLG, Loch Lomond Group's first American whiskey brand in its portfolio, which already includes Loch Lomond, Glen Scotia, and Little Mill. LLG plans to invest in New York Distilling's production capabilities and visitor experience while expanding the brand globally through its distribution network. New York Distilling, founded in 2011 by Tom Potter and Alan Katz, recently moved operations from Williamsburg to Bushwick and launched a new product, Jaywalk Rye. They didn't disclose the financial details of the acquisition, though. What do you think of this?
Well, I think, I mean, here's another example of craft distiller not so much buying into an distribution network, but merging into an international distribution network. You're getting a source of capital that's going to help you expand, and it seems like a success for the owners to be able to get expanded production, have somebody to inject capital to expand their visitor experience, and I don't, it all sounds good to me. Again, you don't know what the financial terms are, but as opposed to having to go borrow money or to try and line up international distribution, here you've got a company that you're working with to accomplish all those things without incurring debt, or you're walking into an established distribution network. That's all good as far as growing a brand.
Yeah, good for them, I guess. But what about for the buyer? It seems to me like a lot of the foreign companies that already bought the American whiskey brands, and we know what the market's here now. It seemed to me like this is a very unusual time to jump in from their perspective, especially we just read how Diageo is getting rid of, lots of things, and we don't know what, but,
Right.
most of our stories are about people selling stuff up and closing things, not buying new. So it just seemed to me that that an unusual time to jump into the U.S. bourbon market.
I think we may see more. I mean, usually these things are months in the making, if not years. And if the market continues to decline, I think we'll see more of it because the producers or distillers with money, whether they're national or international, are always looking for assets to acquire at a good price. And in a market downturn, that's where you find them. This one, I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree. It is an odd time to buy into a downturn market. We've got to assume that this buyer did some sort of marketing study. You would hope that these folks had multiple meetings and discussions, and they think they're a good fit, and that they can create some synergy here. But when folks don't do that, that's when I see them in the bankruptcy world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. I don't know. It just sort of surprised me that this was happening in light of every other story that we read.
Right. No, I hear you. It's against the tide, right?
Yes. All right, moving onward. The 2025 San Francisco World Spirits Competition from the Tasting Alliance results are in. Well, sort of. I don't know about you, but I've always wondered why it seemed like this competition, they were constantly announcing winners. Like I would hear like that it happened, but yet it just sort of continued throughout the year. So
Right.
so I looked
Right.
into it, and now I know why. So recently, all the medal winners except for the platinum were announced. And there's quite a few medal winners. For example, there were 91 bourbons have won double gold, which is their highest level. And I guess, I don't know, I would assume there are more that win the lower level awards than the double gold, but I guess I do not know that for a fact because I didn't look
Well,
at.
there were actually, I actually paged through some of the awards. I mean, and these are awards not just for whiskey. There's tequila. There's all sorts of spirits,
Right,
right?
I was just
So
looking at bourbon. I thought 91 double golds was a gigantic number for one category.
right. Well, and there's also, I mean, I think platinum awards are better than a double gold, right?
Platinum is three double golds in a row in a row.
Ah,
So
okay. All right.
3 years
So
of
we
double gold.
don't know those yet, but yeah, I mean, I looked through some of them. Some of the double golds were Angels Envy's Cask Strength. The Brush Creek we reviewed a while back did not get a double gold, but they both got a single gold.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dark Arts, which is a non-distilling producer, they had five different iterations that got double gold, so they had quite a haul there. In comparison, 1792 had three double gold bourbons. They had their full proof, their 12-year, and their small batch. Got the comparison. Dark Arts is sort of kicking butt there in the double gold category. And I only got down to the D's, and I got tired.
No, I know. But I mean, just, to remind everybody, it's not like they go out and seek out whiskeys and spirits and try them all. They only choose from who entered. And yeah. So
Yeah.
the awards are what they are. But anyway, so then it keeps on going. So after this original medal announcement, then there's a staggered rollout of the announcements of the best in class finalists for each category. So those go on for a few weeks in May, and I think there's one that goes into June. Then after that, they start releasing best of lists at specific price points every month from July through September. Then in November, they have their banquet, and that's when the platinum medals are announced and the final actual category best of winners are announced. So they really stretch this thing out over like 6, 7 months, which is why it feels to me like it happens multiple times a year because I don't know. I was always wondering about that, and now I know.
Right.
So it really
Yeah.
they really get a lot out of it.
They really do. I mean, it is it's a marketer's dream. It's a marketer's coup. Has it gotten to the point where it's over the top? I mean, I almost got the impression that any spirit that was entered got some award because they have double gold, gold, silver, and bronze medal. And I don't know the answer to that question, but it's like, wow, taste and all of that. Second, what does it mean to get a bronze medal at the San Francisco World Whiskey Awards when there's so many other people getting golds, double gold, and then the consistent good ones are getting platinum. The question sort of begs itself. It may be over marketing a little bit, but again, you see these brands putting, hey, we won it this festival and that festival. It's another one to put on the label.
Well, and there is no shortage of competitions that people can enter, and I haven't seen. It's hard to get that answer because I started trying to write an article about all these different competitions and
Yeah.
to get a feel for what the winning percentage was. But they don't. You can't get all the numbers of total entrants in each category. So, but you can see the number of winners, and that's a big number. So someone had gotten these numbers, I think it was a couple of years ago, and I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 96% of entrants won an award of some sort. And
Right.
somewhere, I haven't seen it lately, but at one point it was actually published like what each of those meant. And like I think bronze just meant, basically it tasted like it should for the category. I don't know what the definition of it is now,
Right.
but
Right.
so
We're ready to go on to another fundraiser.
okay. Alrighty. So this next fundraiser, so this is from Buffalo Trace Distillery, which itself has been in the news for all of the destruction that happened there from when were they now? A month ago? Those storms and floods.
Back in April,
Yeah.
early to mid-April.
So Buffalo Trace Distillery, in partnership with Block Bar, has launched the Pour It Forward for Kentucky charity fundraiser to support storm recovery efforts following devastating tornadoes and flooding across the state. And those tornadoes were recent. The flooding it's just been continued disaster, unfortunately.
Yes.
The online auction and sweepstakes feature the opportunity to pick a Blanton's Gold Barrel, rare bourbons, once-in-a-lifetime experiences, and collectibles from Buffalo Trace, the Van Winkle family, Chris Stapleton, PGA, and more. 100% of the proceeds will go to support community relief efforts via the American Red Cross and the Franklin County Flood Relief Fund. Bidding opens May 22nd, which was just recently, and runs through 10 a.m. Eastern Time, June 5th. So this doesn't run for a huge amount of time, but yeah, I mean, Sazerac always steps up and does these fundraising things when there's these disasters, which is
Right.
great.
And they undoubtedly incurred huge costs cleaning up after the flood at Buffalo Trace. And so for them to get through that and then do this, it speaks to their good citizen community doing the right thing. It's nice because this is we were talking about, the format of this isn't just an auction. There's items up for auction, and then there's also a sweepstakes where you can buy tickets, and it's more
Mhm.
like a raffle. I think that's a good marketing approach, also, right? You can choose because not everybody's going to, it's that Blanton's barrel pick, and I think you get to spend the night at the Stag Lodge with that. I mean, that's going to go as it should. It should go for a lot of money, right?
Oh yeah, they go for really high amounts of money. So you either have
Yeah.
to have a ton of
But
money, get a bunch of people together, or be some sort of
yeah.
something that can spend that kind of money.
But then there's people like me who's going, well, there's no way I'll get that. But if I can pay $100 for a sweepstakes ticket, I might do that. And you get a broader reach your donor, and that's the whole idea.
Yeah, no, it's good. Hopefully it raises a lot of money. I mean, we have so many disasters these days. It seems like these things are happening on a regular basis. I mean, wasn't the last one of these? It couldn't have been more than 6 months ago. For those other
Yeah.
tornadoes or
I think
floods, I mean,
I know there was something in the fall, and maybe we didn't have an ice storm. Did we have flooding this winter? I think we had some floods earlier in the spring.
well, we had floods. We've had so many. It's really honestly hard to keep track of them. It's been
Right.
terrible. I mean, there's been the tornadoes at least twice, floods three times now, maybe in the last
I think that's right.
two
Yeah.
years. It's crazy. But anyway, very good that they're stepping up and money will be put to good use. All right, so our last story, we've talked a little bit about this. This is a National Bourbon Week event. The Bourbon Capital Alliance will host its first ever mashup event on Friday, June 13th, 2025, during National Bourbon Week at the new Bespoke and Bond venue in downtown Bardstown. The event will feature 9 partner distilleries, each paired with a local culinary partner, offering bourbon pours and small bites. VIP admission runs from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and includes 4.5-ounce vintage pours, exclusive food pairings by Chef Newman Miller, and the distillery pairings, as well as a commemorative hand-cut Glencairn glass for $3.25. General admission is from 7 to 9 p.m. and includes access to all distillery pairings for $150. A designated driver ticket is also available for $50. And I believe the revenue from this goes to support the Bourbon Capital Alliance. I think it's a fundraising type thing as well.
And so our listeners don't leave with the wrong impression. The VIP tickets don't come with 4.5-ounce pours. It's 4 half-ounce pours.
Yeah, 4 comma. Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh boy, 4.5-ounce pours of Dusties.
Yes, 4 0.5-ounce
Yes.
pours.
Yeah. So, and I dug down and they tell you what those Dusties are going to be. It's going to be a pre-fire Heaven Hill bourbon, a vintage Makers, a vintage Barton 1792, and apparently one or more vintage Beam. So that's a nice pull for the VIP. You get an extra hour, you get those vintage pours. I like that. It's appealing.
Yeah,
Not as
well,
appealing as I'm going to do it, but it sounds great.
no, it is great. And obviously those are 4 of the partner distilleries in the Bardstown area that are part of that. And it also fits right in because Bespoke and Bond is the large entertainment venue that's attached to the new Neat that just opened, and the Neat has vintage pours. So it all ties together and comes full circle. But
Have you been in the Bespoken part yet, Ed?
yeah, so I was at the Neat. They had like an industry night before it opened, and so
Oh,
you got to
cool.
see that. You got to see the whole Bespoke and Bond area. Yeah, it's a very nice place, and it's got what can be an Airbnb unit actually upstairs, which is going to
Hmm.
be part of the VIP area for this event. But
Okay.
so I suppose you can't. Well, I guess you could rent it out for later that night. I don't know, but I mean, they'll use it for, people can rent it out. I think when they have like performers there, they'll have it as a either dressing room or I guess a place that they can stay as
Yep.
well. But yeah, it's actually a very nice place.
That's great. I mean, I think Bardstown will do well with that kind of facility. We'll keep on growing, keep on focus on the bourbon industry. Good cooperative working between the distilleries and the town itself, and the guilds and the alliance. They seem to be knocking it out on the tourism end.
Yeah, well, it's a great place to visit. All right, well, that about does it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon News Podcast, your commercial-free bourbon news podcast. Be sure to join us next Monday for the new Bourbon Releases podcast. We already have quite a few to talk about. Also, be sure to like and follow us at your preferred podcast provider so that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to tell all your friends, too. You can also head over to bourbonobsessed.com to check out some of our over 300 bourbon reviews and over 50 distillery write-ups. While you are there, you can also sign up to have my newsletters delivered directly to your inbox. Finally, I can be found on Instagram at bourbon_obsessed and on Facebook at bourbon obsessed, and would love for you to follow me there as well. Dean, where can they find you?
Folks can find me on Instagram at Dean of Bourbon with underscores. Please follow me, give me a shout out, comment on things you see, give me suggestions to try and build that profile some and get more views. Thanks for having me, Ed. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Dean. And everybody, have a safe Memorial Day, and remember to think of those who have served and sacrificed this day. Have a great week. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.